Welcome to CityWise. I'm your host, Tiana Stevens. CityWise is produced by the City of Rochester to shine a spotlight on city living at its best. Well, thousands of local young ladies have benefited from a unique program where women share their own stories of perseverance in an effort to empower the next generation to reach their full potential. Voices of Experience is a program of the Women's Foundation of Genesee Valley. We're joined today by Susan Latosky, Executive Director of the Women's Foundation, as well as Tokia Graham, board member and committee chair of Voices of Experience. Thanks for joining us, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
So this program has been running for almost 20 years?
Mm-hmm. It was developed in 1997.
Okay.
So it has reached thousands of girls over the years.
Where did the idea for this come from?
It was an idea just to empower young women. The mission of the Women's Foundation is to help women and girls become economically self-sufficient. And the foundation knew that we needed to start to reach out to young girls to tell them the stories of women who have overcome challenges to become successful so that they don't feel alone in the world.
Okay. And Tokia, how does the day go, and what age group do you target?
So, well, the age groups are 12-year-old to about 18-year-old.
Okay.
So, and the evening is young women come in from a variety of organizations. We've partnered with some programs earlier for our literacy component.
Okay.
And so those programs will bring their young ladies there to get to the Nazareth Performing Arts Center, and we feed them first. So that's always a good thing. We have a pizza party. We, of course, welcome them in. Right. And then they're taken to the auditorium, and there's a panel. This year we have 5 women, so we usually have between 4 and 5 women who we call our role models. They'll be on stage, and then the young ladies listen to them for about a half hour while they tell their stories of how they made it over and how they worked through their challenges. And then we call the best part of the program where the young ladies come up to the microphone, and usually unprompted, and we just maybe like slow at first, and then about a half hour of the young ladies asking questions of the role models, but also revealing their own voices and telling their own stories. And then we have a few culminating activities in which because we don't want the evening to end on a low note.
Sure. So
we have some empowering activities, an I Am a Poem activity, and we have the girls talk about their goals, and we pass the microphone around so that they can share their own challenges as well as their triumphs.
So a lot packed into one night.
Yes.
Tell us about some of the ladies, the 4 role models that'll be speaking, and what kind of stories will they be sharing?
Well, Tokia, you know everybody. So.
Right. So I actually was a panelist 10 years ago and then 6 years ago. And so I always try to choose people who are ethnically diverse. So we try to balance between, women of color. And then, so the women we have this year, we have Ifeanyiwa Obieke, who is a young college student who was one of the City of Rochester's employees, and she would bring a group of girls every year. So she's telling her story. One of my best friends, Dina Giovanelli, who's an urban sociologist. We have the head of the judge. We have Melissa Barrett, who is a candidate for judge.
Yes.
Yeah, so she has a good story. And then we have Leanna Thornton, who was she just actually graduated. She'll be graduating this week from college. And Elizabeth Reyes, who's the head of the homeless program at RCSD. So each one of these women will share their stories of their youth, their young adulthood, and now their present life, where they have these positions. But as Susan mentioned, it's about self-sufficiency, economic and personal. And so, yeah.
And you mentioned there's a literacy component that kind of comes before that. How does that, tell us about that program.
Well, a couple of years ago, because we partnered with Nazareth College and we were partnering with people in the adult literacy program at Nazareth, we decided that we would give the girls a book. And in the past, we'd given the girls goodie bags. And I was a little apprehensive about the book, thinking, okay, are they going to get excited about the book? And when we told them they were getting a book, I felt like Oprah. They were like so happy to get a book.
Everybody gets a book.
And so we decided that what we would like to do is to deepen the program by trying to get the book to the girls earlier in the school year.
Okay.
So they could read it together as a group. And the book is always about a girl who has experienced challenges through her youth, and we've had a variety of books. This year it's The Girl Who Fell from the Sky by Heidi DeRoe, and Takia selected the book as an educator. She knows what's good for the girls, and so it's an effort to deepen the program and to get as many books as we can out into the community to encourage literacy and also encourage the girls to overcome any challenges they're experiencing in their lives.
What do you teach them about goal setting before they leave? What are those tools that you give them?
So the first thing we give them is empowerment. You know, that's our common thing. We're all about women and their voices. And so every program that we have, every mission statement that we write, it's always about privileging the voices of women and girls. So that's the best and most significant thing that happens, to show each person. And the women on stage now, the people who come with them, sometimes we've had to tell parents, the microphone is for the girls. You know? Because inside of them is still that little girl who had challenges. So the most pressing and prominent goal is that we see people who are able to share their stories and tell them, you know what, in all your brokenness and all your patched togetherness, you're still okay. And so for many of them, they haven't heard that before, and they really leave, and that message is consistent.
So 20 years of doing this, can you share some success stories? Has there been a girl that attended, you know, as a young girl and has returned as a role model?
Oh, I'm trying to remember if we have anybody that has returned as a role model.
Well, Ifeanwa, who is the city worker, well, she just recently left that job, but she always brought her young students from the city rec programs. And so last year she was the first person that stood up and spoke about her own personal challenges growing up. And I said to her, she used to be one of my students at MCC, and she said, can I ever? I'm like, absolutely. So we've had those stories. My own daughter has come every year, so she's in 7th grade. So she's on the Girls Grant Making Committee, another one of our programs. So we tap into people in different ways. So even if they don't become role models, they end up being volunteers, or they tell other people. They become our #1 ambassadors because they can see what we do.
And we invite the girls also to participate in our Girls Grant Giving Committee, which you know all about, Tiana. And so we do invite girls from Voices to also join us for that program.
And the Girls Grant Making Committee is kind of a branch of the Women's Foundation Grant Making Committee.
Yes, it is. So we look at, all of these programs come under what we call our Girls Initiative. So there's the After School Literacy Program, there's Voices of Experience, there's the Girls Grant Making Committee, and then as you know, the girls are invited to do some public speaking at one of our other events. So it really is a year-round program, and we try to stay connected to the girls. And a lot of the girls come back year after year. We also ask the girls to do an evaluation at the end of the evening, and we ask their mentors. They come with a mentor, a parent, a teacher, a school counselor, and we get tremendous feedback from the girls.
What is some of the things that the girls have to say about it?
I'm not alone. I learned that I'm not the only one who feels different. They do connect directly with the stories of the women. Last year we had a woman whose mother was murdered in front of her when she was 3 years old. And I was surprised well, I shouldn't have been, but there were a number of girls that stood up in the audience and said, this has happened in my family. And they really were relating to her story, and she managed to, after going through a lot in her own life, she was in her late 20s,
Erica.
And had a job and was self-sufficient and had able to overcome her challenges. So that's really inspiring for the girls to hear stories like that.
What is the feedback from the mentors who go up there and share their story, maybe for the first time?
Every time we talk to the role models who have spoken and shared their stories, they're always surprised by how powerful and cathartic it is in their own experiences. We see, as a matter of fact, we added a poem because one of the former role models, Maisha Beard, stood up and she felt compelled to read a poem, to recite a poem, and a young lady from the audience came and they hugged, and she talked about it forever afterwards. And so those sorts of things happen because, as I said before, you still have little girls inside of grown women's bodies, so they haven't had a chance to talk about their stories. One role model had been raped by her father and had gotten pregnant. Another college professor, PhD professor. So we don't stay put in tragedy. We don't stay put in sorrow. We don't stay put in obstacles. And so this is the thing we show them about overcoming. So to someone listening might say, oh, I don't know if my child is ready. Absolutely they are, because that's such a, I don't want to say a small portion, but that's not the mission of the night. The mission is to say, listen, you can go through something, and you might be going through something now. These are people who are not just saying you can do it. They're saying I've done it, and I'm going to pull you up. And so we have role models who are very authentic, and they share that. So they cry on stage, but there's so much healing that happens in this space, and they always are surprised by how much it's touched their own lives.
Sure. Finally, why is this so important for the Rochester community?
One of the things that continues to strike me is we hear a lot about early childhood development, and certainly young children need a lot of support in our community. But there doesn't seem to be a lot for adolescent girls, for teen girls. Yes, they get a fair amount of support in school and from their families if they have a functioning family. But just, there isn't another program like this in the community. And I think it really gives girls an opportunity that they may not be able to find elsewhere. And that's something that we hear from their mentors and their school counselors. You've got to keep doing this. This is great for our girls. They open up, they tell stories that their mentor hasn't heard, so then the mentor knows how to manage this girl and her issues. So it's really good for the girls.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. And again, the Women's Foundation of Genesee Valley will present the Voices of Experience program on Tuesday, May 17th from 5:30 to 8:30 at Nazareth Arts Center. It's a free event. For more information or to register, call 585-242-0940 or visit womensfoundation.org.